Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? A little bit late tonight. Late tonight in the States. East Coast action here. And while I'm waiting on people to come on in, I'm going to go ahead and copy this, paste this, share this with folks, and we'll go from there. Got some good stuff to talk about tonight, I think. And it's going to be centered around kind of what's happening in the world currently. So, Canada, we're going to talk about what makes the United States a really special place to be, and how the United States can be a beacon of light for the rest of the world if we can get our stuff together here. Paste that on there. Cool. Go to Twitter, find out what these fools are doing. Twitter.com. All right. Check the chat here in a second. Okay. Boom. I'm live. In vivo. Hex. And we'll do like a DeFi hashtag, maybe DeFi, and then we'll do Pulse Chain, we'll do Pulse X, and we'll do a SHIB. Why not? And we'll do an Ethereum. Okay, little hashtag action. Boom. Let's see what chat has to say here. Alfie's Reef. What's up, Alfie's? Good evening. Good evening, friend. Good evening. Good evening. Bitfinis. Evening, everyone. I'm here for the good stuff. I got some good stuff. I hope that when I go live and talk about things that I can teach you guys something. I want to teach you. And subsequently, I teach myself. It's not just me teaching you, it's me teaching myself because I got to research this stuff. I got to figure it out. Crypto King, TYRH. Thank you, Richard Hart. Terrafin, you low down dirty son of a gun. What's up? Crypto Kool-Aid, how you doing, brother? How you doing? I'll do that here in just a little bit. I'm going to do a bunch of presenting here in a second. But yeah, we're going to talk about stuff. Crypto Surfer 369 should have done Floki. Yeah. Floki, yeah, I don't know much about it, but I see it all over the place. Inviting for what's up? Bunch of Hexkins here. That's what happens when you use Hexkin hashtags, I guess. Yeah. Terrafin, yeah, we'll get him on here a little bit. We'll get him on. Terrafin, get that dude. Get this dude right here. Get that dude. Yeah. Got that son of a bitch bot. So guys, there is a massive undercurrent right now of freedom-loving people across the world that are, for lack of a better term, they're rising up. They're tired. They're tired of it. And you can beat up people for years and years and years. But when you start affecting their money and when it's blatantly obvious, that's when bad things happen. And governments know this. That's why they boil you slowly. They do it over years. When you have something like COVID happen, governments also know it's an opportunity. They got to seize that opportunity. You can't let any good crisis go to waste. So it's a good opportunity to make power go away for the people. They seize it through legislation, punitive measures, shaming, fear, all that jazz. All right. So I wanted to take an opportunity because I know many of you have never had this type of conversation before. And even in the States, we used to have civics class. I doubt they have it anymore, or even the rendition that I had back when I went to school. So yeah, we want to talk about the freedom truckers. We want to talk about, the suppression and the oppression in different parts of the Western world, specifically Anglo countries, Australia and France and Germany and Canada and United States. And I want to talk about the United States Constitution. If you ever want to get a lesson in what freedom and liberty looks like and the pure amount of insane wisdom that went into this document to be able to navigate the United States over the course of hundreds and hundreds of years, this is what it is. It's an incredible document, and it's not talked about enough. So we'll talk about it a little bit, give you guys a little bit of an introduction. Most of this is from heritage.org, so I want you guys to listen. All right, let me check. Yeah, you're in Australia. It sucks right now. I know crypto pay. I know, and don't for 1 second let people. Do not make people out to be heroes who call you guys crazy, because you're not freaking crazy. You are the majority. You are not the minority. They will lie to you about that too. They just have their hand on the megaphone. So here we go. We're going to kind of get into this. The opening words of the preamble to the Constitution, "We the people," majestically echo the message of the Declaration of Independence. The preamble is a statement of the hopes of the American revolutionaries as well as their obligations. The Constitution was meant to make possible a political society rooted in the rights and freedoms proclaimed in the Declaration. In other words, the Constitution marked not the end of the American Revolution, but rather its fulfillment. The framers were determined to lay the foundation of the United States on certain principles and to organize its power in a particular way, so that both freedom and order could be preserved. Understanding the Constitution, therefore, requires examining each of these principles, and it's essential that we do so because, as James Madison stated in his 1810 State of the Union message to Congress, a well-informed people alone can be permanently a free people. President Andrew Jackson made the same point in his 1837 farewell address. But you must remember, my fellow citizens, that eternal vigilance by the people is the price of liberty, and you must pay the price if you wish to secure the blessing. All right, so the origins of the U.S. Constitution. No other group of assembled political leaders in history was attentive to the lessons of the past as were the men who framed the Constitution of the United States of America. In designing a charter for the form of government they had in mind, the framers looked to both classical and biblical sources, as well as to English common law and European Enlightenment. You guys got to understand that the founding fathers in that time frame, in that time period, they were looking back at history over the past 500 years, and the disadvantage was that 500 years was just war torn. That 500 years was rough in Europe for a lot of different reasons. But the advantage that they had was they were very well read, very well educated, and they could draw from the wisdom of all those experiences, draw from history. And it was really fresh, you know? So they were able to look at that and make some really good decisions about what needed to be done and what didn't need to be done, essentially. And I would say this, folks, if you're in Canada, if you're in Australia, if you're in France, if you're in places that oppression is on the rise and tyranny is on the rise, maybe you could take this video and you could tag your leaders, and we can give them a lesson in the Constitution of the United States, which is the most incredible document ever to exist, one of the most in the history of the world. It's undeniable. This is the foundation, and they could learn a lot from it right now. The framers knew a lot about the ancient Greeks, who were the first to devise a political system in which the people, the demos, held power, the kratos. They call it demokratia or democracy. The Greek experiment in democracy, however, served mostly as a tragedy to be avoided, not as a model to be imitated. Athens, for example, was the most brilliant and democratic of the Greek city-states, but led ancient Greece into its cultural and political decline, dissolving into tribalism and civil war. The framers therefore rejected the idea of direct Athenian-style democracy. Had every Athenian citizen been Socrates, James Madison wrote in the Federalist Papers, every Athenian's assembly would still have been a mob. Socrates, sorry guys. The framers also had a deep knowledge of the history of the Roman Republic and the writings of Cicero, its great defender. The Roman Republic, which lasted an astonishing 500 years, had a mixed constitution in which the chief magistrates shared power with the Senate and legislative assemblies. Eventually, however, the rule of law gave way to the will of the emperor, and the republic collapsed into tyranny. You see what happens, folks? And this isn't, we got one example here, but when you take power and you don't decentralize power and you centralize power, political power into one human being, here's the thing. It can last generations, it can last decades, it can last 100 years, but eventually you're going to get somebody who doesn't have the aptitude, first off. One thing I always tell people is you are promoted to your highest level of incompetence, right? So there's going to be somebody in that bloodline that gets power eventually that screws everything up. Either that's going to happen or there is some magic, mysterious force, not a good force, a very evil force. Power does something to the human psyche if you're not born with the ability to absorb it and handle it, and it corrupts you very much. That's why decentralization is good. That's why massive bureaucracy is bad, very bad. So eventually, however, the rule of law gave way to the will of the emperor. As Cicero famously complained, our generation, however, after inheriting our political organization like a magnificent picture now fading with age, not only neglected to restore its original colors, but did not even bother to ensure that it retained its basic form. With such lessons in mind, the framers were determined to fashion a constitution that could weather the storms of faction, jealousy, and the lust for power that had ruined previous attempts at good government. In 1787, the year the Constitution was drafted, John Adams published the first of 3 volumes defending the state constitutions that already existed. He also examined the constitutions of republics such as Venice, where he wrote, "Great care is taken to balance one court against the other and to render their powers mutual checks to each other. That system broke down when nobility seized and consolidated power." So in the United States, you've got 3 branches, and I think this is leading on to what we're about to talk about. You've got the judicial branch, okay? You've got the legislative branch, Congress, etc. You have Supreme Court, you've got Congress, and you've got the executive branch. So you got to make sure that you have checks and balances. You want to decentralize that power. One checks the other. Very, very important. You don't want all the decisions being made by one person or one branch of government, because that's when things get weird. As Englishmen, the American colonists were already enjoyed a constitutional government that made them the freest people in the world. The concept of a balanced constitution was something that distinguished Great Britain from the rest of Europe. And colonial constitutions bore its imprint. It was the British government's attempt to subvert these models of self-government that stirred revolutionary passions. Okay, so all you hear is the stupid colonists, they did horrible things, blah, 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 small tax, blah. But what was it really? Let's figure out what it was. In seeking a republic remedy for the diseases most incident to republican government, the framers turned to thinkers such as French philosopher Montesquieu, 1689 to 1755, author of The Spirit of Laws, one of the great works in the history of political theory. Montesquieu developed a robust theory of the separation of powers. Separation of powers, legislative, executive, and judicial. Montesquieu developed a robust theory of the separation of powers. To preserve individual freedom, the political authority must be strictly divided into three separate but equal branches, with legislative, executive, and judicial powers. When the legislative and executive powers are united in the same person, or in the same body of magistrates, he wrote, there can be no liberty. He didn't just make that up. They didn't just make that up. They looked at history, folks. That's what it is. How many of you out there in a country that you feel like there's too much power that's concentrated in one branch of your government? How many of you guys feel that way? The framers elevated the concept of the separation of powers into a first principle of free government. They intended the separation of powers to function as the conceptual core of a constitution that would preserve both order and freedom. Despite their differences, the architects of the Constitution embraced a common intellectual tradition, wisdom from the classical world of the Greeks, of the Romans, of the Jewish and Christian traditions, from the early European Enlightenment, and from more than a century of English political debates about natural rights, political absolutism, republicanism, and religious freedom. Out of these shared traditions, they produced a constitution that has made possible the greatest advances in human liberty and equality in history. You guys hear that? If you're from the States, do you ever hear anybody talking about the Constitution this way? No, because the Constitution is the truth and the light, and they're afraid of it. Well, Brandon, what about racism? Well, Brandon, what about women's rights? Well, Brandon, blah, blah, blah. The thing about the Constitution is it gave us the ability to right wrongs, and it did its job. Did its job 100%. Out of this shared tradition, they produced a constitution that has made possible the greatest advances in human liberty and equality in history. As Madison summarized their achievement, the happy union of these states is a wonder. Their constitution is a miracle. Their example, the hope of liberty throughout the world. Here's a little tidbit here. At 81 years old and in declining health, Benjamin Franklin was the oldest delegate at the Constitutional Convention of 1787. He became known as the Sage of the Constitutional Convention, often acting as a mediator and reminding his fellow delegates that we are here to consult, not to contend. After the final meeting of the convention on September 17th, 1787, Franklin was approached by the wife of the Philadelphia mayor, who asked what the new government would be. His reply, a republic if you can keep it. Whew, true. Let me go over to chat here real quick. Let's see what you guys are saying. Okay. Let me go up here. All right. U.S. has its own oppressive issues. We send it to our Congress and peoples and senators. They won't even listen. The problem is, in my opinion, you've got a runaway political system with a runaway media bureaucracy. I don't think there's no way that the founding fathers could have predicted the type of influence that media information, the movement of information has these days. So there was, part of it is like, yeah, you don't want to check and balance the media. But the problem is the media is now bought and paid for. And it's a for-profit organization, which means they will do the things that make them money. And it's crooked and it's false and it's disgusting and horrible. So we send it to Congress and senators. The Congress and senators don't care. They're playing a different game. They're playing a game called power. They don't give a damn about anything, really. Well, few do, but they don't have the power to move the needle. Curtis King, thankful to live in Florida where our governor is a badass and he stands up. Yes, he does. That dude is bad. That dude doesn't care. He's unapologetic. And I think that's the best way to be. It's the best way to be because it's the easiest way when you have somebody that's unapologetic about their views, okay? And you see the opposition standing next to them and they're both talking about similar things, right? They are competing in a field of ideas. And if you're trying to pander or cater to somebody else, then you're not going to get a true representation of what those ideals are. So I love it, whether it's on the right, whether it's on the left. Like Bernie Sanders, he was very unapologetic about his message. It's mostly stayed the same. Don't agree with the damn word he says. I think I understand where his compassion's coming from, though. I think his head's twisted up by Marx and Engels. But I appreciated the fact that he didn't mince words and he was pretty straightforward about what he wanted for America. Um, Max Bonnet, the beautiful thing about a failed state is that the people no longer have expectations from the work of others. Yep. All right. Let's check some more. I'm gonna go into this here in just a second again. Max Bonnet, this community's kick ass. Yeah. Yeah. All right. We'll get back into this. We'll go down to the bottom here. All right, so let's pick up. This is the genius of the Constitution. All right. It's the design. It's the real genius. The Constitution's genius begins with recognizing both the virtues and the limitations of human nature. It establishes a system of government that channels human nature towards the good of all. I'm going to read that again. It establishes a system of government that channels human nature towards the good of all. So we're using that power. We're using that power inside of us. We unlock it and we move it towards everybody in a way that also incentivizes the individual, but also brings everybody up in such a big way with it. The first plan the framers tried after declaring independence was called the Articles of Confederation. The government that the Articles created failed because it was too weak to coordinate national policy among the states with different priorities. Before the government could do almost anything, the Articles required a unanimous vote by all the states, which often put the states in the position of voting against their own individual interests. The framers saw that it was not realistic to expect the states to do that. George Washington wrote, "We have probably had too good an opinion of human nature in forming our confederation." So the framers tried again, creating a system of government that did not deny the pursuit of self-interest, but instead helped to direct it towards compromise and consensus. If you guys go back, I did a video. I'm going to do this video every single year. It talks about Thanksgiving, the true story of Thanksgiving. It talks about the Pilgrims. It talks about all that. So the governor at the time, when they came over, they had a very like socialistic view of how to govern with these new places that they set up in the New World, right? So everybody was working for the common good. And what they found was people started dying off, very frankly. And why did they do that? Well, in the diary entries of the governor at the time, he talks about people not pulling their own weight. And when somebody else doesn't pull their own weight and somebody is pulling their own weight or working really, really hard, it demoralizes the person that's working hard. And you see a slow decline in productivity. They saw this, and what he eventually did was change things up. He gave everybody a plot of land. He gave everybody responsibility. And he said, everything that you do, it's on you in this plot of land. You can provide for your family, etc. We're going to open up a common store. And anything extra that you produce is going to go to this common store where you can trade and barter. And the whole community can come together in a reasonable way, in a fair way, and take advantage of the excess. And they prospered. It was such a complete turnaround. Read his diary entries. It's absolutely insane. So when I'm reading this quote here, um, yeah, we have probably had to do good, an opinion of human nature in forming our confederation. So we have to take into account what human nature is. We want to do better for ourselves. We don't necessarily want to have to depend on somebody else. But the second part of that is when we do good for ourselves, most people will give. Most people will share the excess. And that is human nature. And most political systems outside of pure capitalism, and you go down the spectrum, they move further and further away from that. And as you move further and further away from that, you can see the destruction and the death of city states, or not city states, but nation states that have gone away from capitalism, failed political ideologies. You must first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place, oblige it to control itself. Right. So they had to get the states to work together. And after they did that, they have to come up with some type of framework for it to basically be on autopilot. It's like a smart contract. That's what the Constitution is. The first smart contract. The Constitution accomplishes this by preventing too much power from ending up in too few hands. Again, decentralization. The Constitution divides and disperses government power, making it difficult for any person or group to obtain power without first seeking to compromise and reach consensus for others. There's a system of checks and balances. There's barriers put in place here. Okay, they have to reach consensus with other people before they they can't just push their idea through. The Constitution divides power to create checks and balances among the three branches of federal government and between the states and the federal government, while also recognizing the priority of certain individual rights and requiring widespread agreement to change the supreme law of the land. So, what's federalism? The Constitution divides government power in a couple different ways. Federalism divides it vertically between the state and the federal government. Okay. So, federal government, state, federal government. State government is closer to the people and therefore should be principally responsible for looking after the people's domestic and personal interests. Especially as the country and the population spread, the federal government would be increasingly unable to address these ongoing needs. Okay. So what's it called? The voting system, popular vote, electoral college, right? For those of you in the States, you're familiar with electoral college. There's going to be different amounts of votes based on people and based on regions and based on population. And it's for that reason. On the other hand, giving states too much power would hamper efforts to address the country's collective interests. For example, if Maine were invaded, Florida might consider that the cost of helping with resources and lives outweighed the benefits of preserving the Union. Or if each state had its own currency, trade and commerce would be almost impossible. The question was how to strike the right balance between the individual interests of the states and the collective interests of the nation as a whole. Always mindful of the need to set limits, the framers designed the Constitution so that the states would give specific powers to the federal government, but not vice versa. See how important that is? The 10th Amendment therefore says that any powers not directly given to the federal government are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. In other words, the states are assumed to have powers that are not given away, and the federal government has only powers it receives that are enumerated or listed in the Constitution. We've gone very, very far away from that. And many different iterations of the Constitution exist in the Western world. And we are so far separated from tyranny for all these years that we just don't understand the importance of the words that are coming out of my mouth right now as I read this to you. We just don't get the importance. We don't have the perspective. We don't have the fear. We don't have the understanding because we're too far separated from the struggle and from the death and destruction to really understand it. It's a big piece. Separation of powers. In addition to limiting the powers given to the federal government, the framers also divided those federal powers into three branches. The legislative branch, which itself is divided into the House of Representatives and the Senate, makes the laws. The executive branch enforces them, and the judicial branch interprets them when setting legal disputes. Here's a little tidbit. The U.S. Constitution has endured for more than 2 centuries. It is not only the world's oldest national constitution still in use, but it's also the shortest at only 4,500 words. Brevity is the soul of wit, right? Rather than concoct a detailed recipe covering every possible eventuality, the framers' brilliant design provides a structure and articulates a set of stable principles that provide a timeless guide for good governance that is enduring and worth preserving. Absolutely. How does that compare to other national constitutions? Well, national constitution, average lifetime of the world of a national constitution over the past 250 years, the average lifetime non-United States is about 17 years when they create their own. They should probably fork America's constitution. America's constitution, 230 years. It's pretty big, pretty important. Let's check chat here real quick before I get into this. All right. Morning. Kat G, what's up? Okay, cool. Let's check out. All right. Red Squirrel, what's up? How you doing, brother? Mango Junkie, what's up? Crypto cool. I appreciate it, man. Thank you. I think this may be my first time on Rag Stream. Adding him to my homework. We try to teach here. Okay. We try to make things worth it here. And we try to make it applicable to what's going on in the world at large. That's what we try to do. Okay. Absolutely. Let's see here. Rags, you look exactly like one of my friends here in Brisbane, Australia. It's actually freaky. He loves black girls. I don't discriminate. Shoot. Pulsating hexgasm. Ooh, rah. How's it going, Brandon? Good, man. Good. Or man, maybe. Female? I don't know. All right. We're going to get back into this here in a second. Yeah. We lived in luxury for too long. It's funny to me seeing Europeans making fun of all of us still having guns. Dude, I know. Here's what's crazy. I keep seeing these ads because I'm loosely connected to, some of the news outlets in the UK just through Twitter and some other social accounts that I have. And all of the same propaganda that we're being fed right now about how we should disarm ourselves in the States. It's like one of the slogans, just say no to guns. Okay. Or this is a gun-free zone. I'm seeing the exact same stuff in the UK. And it's like, just say no to knives. This is a knife-free zone. I'm like, are you kidding me right now, dude? I'll tell you one of the most horrible things I've ever seen. I guess quite a bit of your street cops, they're not armed. I saw this poor 20-something-year-old woman get completely destroyed by a dude who's probably like 275 pounds, 6'3". I saw her get beat for 3 minutes, police officer. And everybody wants to talk all the trash in the world about this or that. United States cops, they're aggressive. No, United States police they're not aggressive. They're very firm, but they're fair. And if you read this stuff online, it's just complete garbage about what our police officers are. It's some of the best people that I've ever met growing up. And I don't, I do not care what you say about police officers, what you see online. It's all feeding into this narrative that capitalism's bad. You know, uh, the patriarchy's horrible. The current system is oppressive. It's all trash. It's garbage. Don't believe it. It's not there. It is not there. All right, let's get back into this. Yeah. I can't believe she didn't have a knife, man. It's horrible. You can see it online. You can see a lot of videos like that online. Why am I gonna I'm not gonna confront. I mean, it's like me trying to confront like a I don't know, like an 800-pound gorilla in the freaking jungle. I'm a big dude, but that gorilla is gonna beat my ass. Like that's what's gonna happen. And that's pretty much what that police officer is going into. You think her pepper spray is gonna slow somebody down who's in a rage? No, it's not. I've been pepper sprayed. I know how that goes. You can still fight. All right, let's get off this. All right, here we go. Separation of powers, three branches of government. You've got the judicial branch in the United States. The responsibilities, it interprets the law, it resolves legal disputes between private parties and the government, and between different branches of government. It checks the legislature. So it's a check against the legislature, strikes down laws that are unconstitutional, and it checks the executive branch. Chief Justice presides over the Senate impeachment trials of the president. It strikes down unconstitutional executive orders or unconstitutional enforcement of actions. The legislative branch, responsibilities, it creates federal laws. Okay, it appropriates money, it approves treaties, and declares war. It checks the judiciary, impeaches and removes judges, adds and removes courts, or changes their jurisdiction. It passes legislation that overrides court decisions, and do not involve constitutional issues. It proposes amendments to the Constitution, and it checks the executive branch. So the House impeaches the president. The Senate decides whether to remove the president from office. The Senate can reject executive and judicial nominees made by the president or treaties proposed by the president. Congress can refuse to appropriate funds for presidential priorities. House and Senate can override presidential veto of legislation by a 2/3 vote. And then the executive branch. Responsibility. It's responsible for executing the law. It checks the legislator. So, the executive branch, you've seen this all the time. He vetoes bills. It calls Congress into special session. Vice President breaks ties in the Senate. And it checks the judiciary, nominates federal court judges and Supreme Court justices, pardons or grants clemency to people convicted of federal crimes. Do you see how it's just all interwoven, that check and balance system? It's very, very, very healthy and is designed not to allow people to concentrate power in one place. So, once again, the framers wanted to prevent too much power from ending up in too few hands, because that would endanger the freedoms that government exists to secure. Madison, for example, wrote that putting legislative, executive, and judicial powers in the same hands, whether of one or few or many, may justly be pronounced by the very definition of tyranny. Ooh. So let's say that again. Madison, for example, wrote that putting legislative, executive, and judicial powers in the same hands, whether of one, a few, or many, may justly be pronounced the very definition of tyranny. Quoting Montesquieu, he continued, "There can be no liberty if the power of judging be not separated from the legislative and executive powers. After all, if one body possessed the power to make and enforce laws, nothing would stop it from enacting unjust laws. Likewise, if the same body exercised both the power to write laws and the power to decide legal disputes, nothing would stop it from arbitrarily changing the laws to suit the government's needs. Critically, the government could change the law without considering the will of the people. Separating the powers of government to protect against tyranny makes sense. But why does the Constitution separate them as it does? It all comes down to timing. A large body of people like Congress acts slowly and deliberately when it comes to passing laws that will govern all the people of the country. Deliberation and debate help to promote compromise and consensus. But the speed is necessary if the nation is attacked, and a defense must be mounted. In that case, one president can act much faster than assembly can. Likewise, when the nation needs to speak to foreign countries, one person can present a unified message that Congress cannot. The Constitution gives to the judicial branch the power to interpret and apply the Constitution or statutes to decide individual legal disputes. Alexander Hamilton explained that this requires the judgment of a court rather than the will of the legislative branch or the force of the executive branch. Unlike legislators or the president, federal judges do not have specific terms, so they are free to render judgment impartially and without fear of political retaliation. That's huge. You can't be afraid of political retaliation amongst the different branches, right? Although we've seen some crazy stuff play out really in the past, well, a couple times in the past 5-10 years. All right. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the Bill of Rights. We'll talk about amending the Constitution. And then if Crypto Kool-Aid is still around here, we'll get in here. Okay, guys? We'll get him in here and we'll chit chat. Actually, I'll get you ready here, man. Let me get you a StreamYard link and I'll send it to you in Telegram. Okay. Crypto Kool-Aid. I need somebody to come in here and organize all my stuff, dude. This is out of control. I hate it. There you are. All right. Just go in the green room and then, go in the green room when you're ready. We'll go. All right. We'll talk about the Bill of Rights here. Let me check some comments. I identify as a Hexkin. That's all that matters. It's pretty neat. You know, one thing that I see as I get older, it's like you see a whole lot of different ideas recycled, but you wouldn't know they were recycled unless you studied history, unless you knew. So that's the importance of history, because not only can you see these ideas brewing, but if you look at history, you can see the results of those ideas. It's kind of like being a prophet, except not. See, sometimes you sound really, really smart when you're just really good at reading and memorizing. There's not much knowledge that is new anymore. That is for sure. Yeah, good cops and bad cops, period. Absolutely. I would venture to say that the amount of good cops and bad cops is probably like something crazy, like 98% good, I would say. Maybe 95. If you're a police officer, maybe you can tell me differently. I don't know. All right. What else do we got here? Crypto Kool-Aid, a mind is always more powerful than a weapon. Mind bullets, it's fear. Fear is the tiny death. You were right. Fear is the mind killer. Okay. All right, let's check. Bitfiness. TV is garbage. It's cherry picked and needs CIA approval before airing. It's basically the CIA squawk box. There are exceptions to every good thing. Media magnifies these exceptions to paint reality. If you're a for-profit media organization and you find out that a certain group, a certain demographic, a certain whatever is, gravitating towards your media outlet, then you have to start feeding them the stuff that they want instead of doing the right thing and just reporting the truth. But because it's based on money, you're going to give them what they want and you're going to sensationalize it and you're going to twist the truth and you're going to fire people up because they'll keep coming back. Their brains love it. And that's what's disgusting about the media these days. This didn't always happen this way. I've talked to a lot of folks older than me, and this phenomenon of not reporting the actual news in the States, probably goes back to like it took a turn in the 70s and 80s, based on what I've heard. Now, again, I just got done telling you guys that like history didn't begin with the United States. This has been going on a long, long time. All right. So we can't be naive to think that it doesn't. All right. We are the bad kids in the classroom not paying attention. Cot G, that is always you. Can you guys believe it? I am going to interview Cot G on Wednesday. Can you believe that? And I'm going to be reaching out to some of you guys that are up in here quite a bit. I just want to talk to you. I want to learn about you. We'll put you on here. Okay. What does this say? May God prosper the American Revolution, that there may be one asylum on earth for men who prefer natural rights to the prerogatives of the foolish. Perverted head because it wears a crown. Absolutely. Crypto Kool-Aid, what's this say? Brandon is always worth a watch. I have someone asleep in a bed. She doesn't know I moved, but I'll always be here to support this guy. He's a metric legend. Ugh, I will not go that far, my friend. I'm just reading. That's all I'm doing. Best cult ever. Love it. All right, I'm going to read this. We're going to get into the Bill of Rights. And then we're going to talk about how things are amended in the Constitution, which is actually very important. A lot of bad things have happened in America's history, but we have the ability to make them right through the Constitution. That's where the power comes from. The Bill of Rights. Dividing government power vertically through federalism and horizontally through separation of powers is an example of the necessary internal control of the government that Madison described. The Bill of Rights, which recognizes certain fundamental individual rights, is an example of an external control. Each of us has certain fundamental rights that no government may ever take away. The Declaration of Independence refers to these as unalienable rights. These include the freedom to practice any religion you choose, to speak your mind, to petition the government to change the law, to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures, to bear arms, to have a fair trial, and to be free from cruel and unusual punishments. So I'm going to read that again because that's really important. This is the Declaration of Independence. Each of us has fundamental rights that no government may ever take away. The Declaration of Independence refers to these as unalienable rights. These include the freedom to practice any religion you choose, to speak your mind, to petition the government to change laws, to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures, to bear arms, to have a fair trial, and to be free from cruel and unusual punishments. For those of you who are listening that are from different countries, how does this compare to what you guys are taught in school? And I would even venture to say that if you've had a constitution that's been around for a while, it's probably pretty similar to this. But if it's anything like the United States, they don't teach this stuff anymore. They don't teach it the way that they should. This is the most important thing, in my opinion, that should be taught in any school. What about math? Well, math is good unless you're under tyranny, and then it really sucks. Math sucks then. The Bill of Rights guarantees those rights for each and every individual, even if the government or majority of the people might wish to deny those rights to someone. Justice Antonin Scalia once observed that every banana republic in the world has a Bill of Rights, but most are just words on paper because those countries' constitutions do not prevent the centralization of power in one person or one party. It is the structure of government established by our Constitution that makes our system distinctive. Federalism and the separation of powers, a bicameral legislature, and a judiciary that is independent of the two political branches combined to form a design for government that makes the Bill of Rights real and meaningful. The Constitution is the oldest written charter in continuous use anywhere in the world. In the most famous case of Marbury versus Madison, the Supreme Court in 1803 explained that the framers wrote the Constitution down for a very practical reason, so that its rules for government may not be mistaken or forgotten. When he left office, President George Washington said that because the Constitution expresses the people's will, it is sacredly obligatory upon all until it is changed by an explicit and authentic act of the entire people. That's the beauty of the Constitution. That's what it takes. It can be changed. And when it is changed, it's serious because it took a massive amount of consensus from the people. By permitting amendments, the Constitution allows the people of today both to continue operating with the rules that have been established and to change those rules if they see fit to do so. By design, amending our great Charter of Liberty is difficult and requires extensive deliberation to ensure that the amendments reflect the settled opinion and the will of the people. As James Madison explained in The Federalist, the amendment procedure allows subsequent generations to correct errors and make whatever useful alterations will be suggested by experience. Okay. At the same time, the difficulty of the amendment process prevents the Constitution from being weakened or deprived of that veneration which time bestows on everything, and without which the wisest and freest governments would not possess the requisite stability. Do you guys understand now why there's such an emphasis for the government to be involved with the media? It's because ultimately big changes can't happen unless the people allow it to happen. And they know that. The problem is the people don't know that. That's the problem. They've got to manipulate, they've got to twist things. And every single person that they can get on the side of lies and the side of mistruths is one step closer to being able to take control of America by circumventing or changing the Constitution through manipulation. That's why so much money, that's why so much involvement, that's why so many lies, and that's why the media targets you out of fear. Okay? Amendments have been suggested thousands of times since the Constitution was ratified in 1789, but the states have approved only 27 of the 33 amendments Congress has actually proposed. These included adding the Bill of Rights, changing the way the president and the vice president are elected, abolishing slavery, preventing state governments from discriminating against any person, guaranteeing the right to vote to all citizens regardless of race or sex, giving the federal government the power to collect an income tax. I don't know why they did that. Well, I do know. Providing for the direct election of senators, and both outlawing in 1919 and then legalizing in 1933 the production and distribution of alcohol. The great genius of the Constitution is this: it permits the people to govern by themselves by putting the power of government in their own hands, by protecting them from those who would take power or liberty from them, and by giving each successive generation the ability to improve upon the government bequeathed to them by those who came before them. So, in here in the next couple of days, some other after darks, we'll get in here and I'll finish this. I will finish this. I'm going to go ahead and bring Crypto Kool-Aid in here. Everybody get a warm round of applause to Crypto Kool-Aid, the man, the myth, the legend. You good, brother? Thumbs up. Hell yeah.
Do not like, do not subscribe, do not dare you comment on this damn video, especially on my accord. How are you, buddy?
How's life, man?
Yeah, busy doing the game, shuck and hustle. But yeah, things are all right, man. I was relaxing, and then I saw you come on, and yeah, man. There is. So I've been trying to sponsor kids for a long time, and Brandon is one of the few people that puts their mouth where the money is and actually demonstrates the methodology of freedom for the people, by the people, to help the people. That's why I like this guy so goddamn much. It's an honor and a pleasure, dear friend. And
thank you, dude.
Usual, you need anything, you let me know.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you reaching out and all that, and that I think it's very important what you said. It's not important what you said about me, but it's important just generally speaking. It's all about actually putting your money where your mouth is, because you
Mm-hmm.
can make a huge impact with a
On one
small amount of
person.
money
On
or
one
no
person.
money at all. You don't need money to do it.
Mm-hmm. That's
Just
right.
volunteer yourself, volunteer your time, help somebody. It makes a difference.
That's right. That's right. Sweat equity is actually the most important equity, and knowledge is the most expensive token in the world. But if you know where to look for it, it's free. And as long as you can gather that knowledge, you have the money tree. You can shake it and get your rake and gather that shit up and
So
then
true.
take that harvest. It's just people don't want to put in that sweat equity,
Yeah.
which is crazy in my mind.
Yeah. And people, they underestimate the amount of complexity that is derived from one single action.
Mm-hmm.
You have an option. You can do evil, you can do good. Evil is going to take you down a road, good's going to take you down a road. But the amount of compounding that happens either way, when you have a lot of people doing good for the world,
Mm-hmm.
it's incalculable.
Correct. And so,
Incalculable.
like, it's weird because I'm looking at, I was a Byrne delegate in 2016. I believe in the mythos of what he's talking about, and then you've heard my model on how to make capitalism for the poor populace. But if we actually took the Constitution and then implemented that into a DAO that was immutable instead of the shit that's being doing right now by wackadoodle senators and wackadoodle bot lobbyists. Because remember, everything that comes within our laws is now right and paid for due to Citizens United.
Yeah.
And they're slowly, slowly, slowly trying to erode the Constitution. Slowly, slowly, slowly. From using the term fake news, from using the term uh, voting fucking law, and it goes on both sides. I'm not saying like just one side of a political party does it or another. They all do it for politics.
Yeah.
Once we
And
get, go ahead, sir.
no. Once we get, go ahead, finish that thought.
Oh, the thought is that if we can take what we learned from the Constitution and we apply that to what happened to Rome, right? Rome eventually got bigger than its britches. They extended too large. They pointed their knife at too many different countries that the Germanic population and all the rest of that came and countered because they were usurping, and they used the basket of freedom as a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just as dangerous as not having freedom. And if we look to the future where we actually have that commonality and for the first time in this world, interoperability, we can change that for the better of everyone because everyone has that inalienable right to be free, to be educated, and to live the good life that they should be given.
And that's what the Constitution outlines. It outlines unlocking human nature as the direct means to make the world better.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't oppress people and expect things to be okay.
Right.
The problem that I foresee, if I'm trying to think ahead a couple steps here, the age that we're in now provides much less accountability for people.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to look somebody in the eye if you make a comment or statement. You don't have to do these things. You can be blacklisted, but you can just spin something else up. So I think that DAOs, for example, what's going to stop some really bad actors? I think it would be easier. What's going to stop them from buying up the votes? You know, that type of thing.
It's
Because we
very,
don't know these people. We
yep.
don't. It's hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's very, very hard. But we also technically don't know the senators that currently lay votes that they don't even read the bills. They just know that they got a padded paycheck, and the subordinate read it and said that you got paid this, so sign the declaration of this and cast your vote. We already live in that world where bad actors
Mhm.
can buy the voting power of the governance token. We already live there, except those are just people. When you can actually score their vote on a blockchain or just have translucency to what's going on, whether that's a wallet, a governance token, a payment. Now everything's exposed. You know what I mean? Like, look at I don't want to say names or go on stuff, but like a particular Republican female that got super heckled, and then his male counterpart in Florida that had a soiree with some females. There are many different actors that are voted into our congression due to voting laws and regulations where their scrupulences are not like shown in full light, and they give an anonymity that it wasn't them, or it wasn't me, right? You know what I mean?
I agree. I think that the thing that scares me the most, I do not disagree with anything that you said. We haven't found a solution for the system that we're living in now, and I think it's only going to be more difficult if we move into the new future.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For a variety of reasons. Now, with that said, I am a believer that we can solve any problem that we need to solve. And I think that it's going to take leaders with a lot of wisdom about the past to be able to apply that in a very abstract way, might I add, because the world is changing fast. Apply that to what we have going on now and moving forward in the future. I want to give a shout out to Richard Bailey, 999 models of what this community is and needs to be.
Super shout out to him. He's one of my onboards, and I whip him daily to get him in the right frame of mind. Him and Chris Side Effects are very, very good friends, very, very good Hexicans, and they go out, they teach, they work hard. They work very, very, very hard blue collar jobs. And
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, just in general, I came from being a truck driver. That's why I resonate with that kind of stuff. And you can, in Bitfinesse, the mother trucker himself, if you look at what you have as knowledge by watching these free streams, all of us wackadoodles, and then you take that knowledge and go do your own research and do more, figure out more, you are wealthier as a server, as a truck driver, as a ditch dragger, as a plumber than any high dollar person that lives in their naive sense of reality. Because we can change the world in the coming 5-10 years, because who has money, power, knowledge, and more importantly, compassion?
You're right. And I think we live in a world today that the first part of your life, I think society tries to derail you as a proper citizen. And so hear me out here. You go to school, they don't teach any type of civics anymore in the United States. They don't teach the Constitution. They don't teach these things. You get to college, and college, you don't know which way is up. It's and let's face it, a lot of drinking, a lot of drugs, a lot of things that can derail you there. So by the time you make it out of the first part of your life, the first quarter, let's say, in some cases half for people, depending on how much you drank in college, but but by the time you get out, you don't know anything about history. You don't know anything about the world. You don't have any experience. So I would encourage people that grow up probably in the Western world. I would assume it's very similar in other places. Like right now is the time for you to teach yourself about these things, because we are only as strong as a people as the weakest person, historically speaking. We got to know that's our biggest self-defense is understanding how this goes down.
It's also biggest Achilles heel. Remember, Rome undid itself by its own hubris. And we can't say that America, which is not the most well-educated company in the world, does not have the best infrastructure in the world, does not have anything. It got everywhere due to its yield of assets that it could, which it stole, fundamentally put together by we the people. And then look at what happened with taking away the gold, and then taking away the gold standard, and then running that through the Fed. We have the opportunity, as being the Fed, as being the people, for the people, by the people, to change. And if it doesn't come in America, we can take our assets and yields and go to a different country and help build them up and hopefully set the shining star. That what is it? I forget who it was
The
Nixon
shining
or
star of the city.
yeah. It was
Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan. Sorry, it's John Sunny City, right?
Yeah.
Be the lighthouse that allows us to go set the stage. And once you do that, you put everyone else in check because then they have to choose whether they take the mate or they bow the knee. And it really depends on what happens. It's an interesting paradigm that we live in. It's almost like the Twilight Zone because they're trying to pretend like they didn't whodunit it. But those who are educated listen to Wales, listen to what Rags was just saying with the Constitution. Does that sound like what's going on right now? Or does that sound like people are hiding, cloak and dagger? I mean, Ted Cruz is the worst out of all of it, right? He says constitutionalist, but then runs when the people who have the power don't have power to move the oil to actually give them power.
Yeah.
It's dirty, funny money corrupted everything. And that's the one most important thing about Hex. It's not that it's immutable, it's uncorruptible. It's the people who can be corrupted. And if we look at the people that are now coming forward to embrace, use, yield, and develop on this opportunity, we can see the actors and know who the corruption would lie through, right? Because those of us that come on to speak for free, we don't need Citizens United to pay us. We don't need anything except to help those of us brothers in arms break out of that glass ceiling that we've all been in. And when you have more that come forward, you get that viral army that, again, will go and free more people. It's the Underground Railroad of oppression that we're actually building, and the Underground Railroad of finance, because all of those fat cats don't care. They're the first ones to take the handout from a stimulus check or a banking overthrow or all the rest of that. But what about the people? And the people can watch the streams and get their money in. And this is the funny thing is once your money is in and you go to DeFi, no one can touch you. Off ramps will be the target. Let's be realistic. You always have to know where your targets are. However, you can keep earning your yield and then move yourself or your accounts to a more favorable state and then do what you can to help where you came from. It's the same pilgrimage that immigrants go to a different country to work for a better wage, to send their money back home, to help change their world eventually.
Absolutely, dude. I love that. I love that. I love the, you talk about Rome and what happened with Rome is they had the pieces there. And for a long time, the different branches of government, they respected each other, but eventually it bled through and power got too centralized. And because power got too centralized, those checks and balances weren't there. And like I said, 500 years is an extremely long time up until that point for an empire to be alive. And all it takes is a decade for it to go away completely because you don't have the benevolent people there.
It's a term of a slippery slope. Once you go down the slippery slope, you're done.
Absolutely. And is this your boy right here, Chris?
Yeah, Chris is my number one on board. Super active in both the hex.com Facebook group, onboarding, getting people on, and doing what I get frustrated with doing now. But yeah, Chris and Richard are very, very, very good friends and awesome Hexkins. And Abid, if you're listening, hit up Chris. He's really excited to meet you guys. And awesome. So is Richard.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that donation, man. It means quite a bit. It really does. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And that money's going to go to our next little Christmas endeavor.
100x or 1,000 or 100 or 1,000x Christmas, man.
Yeah, 100 or 1,000x. We'll see. So just to let people know, we put about $7,800 in front of a person on Christmas Day this year, or actually Christmas Eve, right before. And what I want to do this year, I want to take that one person and multiply it by 100, or maybe multiply it by 1,000, and we bless 100 or 1,000 families. So I'm actually talking to Hasbro right now
Oh, I
And
need to help you with that. So I need to. You
yeah,
got to remind me because I always like too many things in my brain. Let me figure out more people I may know there.
no, yeah, I'm going I'm going up the ladder and talking to this person, that person, and trying to
Well,
figure
I'll do
things
this in
out.
real time while we're talking. So see if I can figure out
Yeah.
to connect.
So we're going to be trying to do that this Christmas, and I'm probably going to kick that off in July. That'll give us plenty of time to raise some funds. And if you guys have any questions about what that might look like, you can check out my video right around Christmas, Rags to Riches Christmas story. Absolutely.
It brought me to tears, Brandon. It brought me to tears. Like you can't be a better human than to inspire a child to be a better human,
Yeah.
right? Because that kid now understands the true value of humanity, right there.
Yeah.
That moment will transcend her history, not just her dad, which is good,
Right.
but like her, because the dad views it as an equal, as a man to a man, a human to a human. That little human hasn't suffered yet, but now will hold this value, this light that said real humanity fights and gives.
Yeah.
And they'll remember that forever.
Absolutely. And they're going to do the same thing for other people.
Correct.
And the thing is, like, I had somebody in the comments be a complete jackass, and you're like, stop trying to be a white savior. I'm like, dude.
Oh my God.
Like, dude, you know where I freaking came from, man? You know how long it took me to get to the point where I could do that? I'm not saving anybody. I mean,
Do not
this
like,
is
do
where I
not
grew up. These
subscribe,
are
and do
neighborhoods
not
I grew up in.
comment.
This is
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
did. What's up?
As a do not like, do not subscribe, and go fuck the right off.
Dude,
I know.
absolutely, man. Freaking stupid. I hate that narrative, and I want to do everything I possibly can to bust the balls of anybody who would say something like that.
Correct.
It's horrible. They would rather me not do that, and they would rather that person suffer.
Well, what they want is they want to have an excuse on why they can't do it. It's the negging reverse of reality because they don't feel that they want
Yep.
to put the effort in. They're going to demonize what they should do.
Yep.
Period.
They project some really horrible things that they have on their minds on the rest of the world, and I'm tired of it. I put up with it too long in my life, and I'm not going to put up with it anymore. So I'm going to fight it directly.
So I've got two digital sculptors that I went to college with. I don't know them directly, but like my college is super close knit, so I think I can get more people to help.
Yeah, just whatever, man. I'll talk to anybody. You could Rags Riches Squad at gmail.com.
Sure. Yeah, I'm gonna beep them to drop in, be like yo, and then from there we'll see what we can do to get you more eyes within the community, within their ecosystem, because that just helps. In my world, it's all about who you know.
Of course, I appreciate it, man. I really do.
I appreciate you, dude.
All right, let's see what this says. Just go watch C-SPAN and see how much of a circus Congress is. The senators need to have staff tell them what to say, and the leaders are just reading from a script when they address the Senate. That does bother the hell out of me, actually. It bothers me bad. It bothers me to see Senator Elizabeth Warren sit up there and trash DeFi. She has no freaking clue. She has no clue. And she doesn't.
I used to be a fan. Like, did like your stream about her, it blew me away. It like literally redacted everything that I had at hope. That she would bust the bankers up, and they're going after DeFi for terrorism.
Yeah. I did one of my earlier videos, probably earlier than you've seen. I made the case that Marx and Engels would absolutely love cryptocurrency for very obvious reasons. They're for reasons that you point out all the time, actually. But when I saw the type of reaction that a lot of people on the left were giving cryptocurrency, I realized at that point that it wasn't about the people, and it's about the power, because they should be on board in a big way. It's a very easy way to do it. All right, let's see here. Still a year away. 2022 is our year. It's going to be a lot of people's years, folks. A lot of folks. A lot. All right, let's check. And this is something important too. I'm going to highlight that comment real quick. Models of what this community is and needs to be. I want to, everybody in the community has this on their mind. They want to help people, every single person. And the only difference between me and some of you guys in this chat is just that I've been speaking in front of a microphone for like the past 9 months. That's the only difference. Everybody else, everybody wants to do well. They want to do well for the world. So I'm glad that I can have you guys on chat and be able to share this type of stuff. If there's anything else that you want to share, um, put 99 cents up and I'll post that thing up for you. I'm trying to swindle you out of $1, guys. So
A
deal with it.
whole dollar, which YouTube will take 45% of.
Correct. It's freaking horrible. But yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is that like when we know what we have as far as our true yield producing asset, and then nesting our war chests into more yield producing assets with the Richard Hart mindset, the dollar speaks your voice. It's a tithe, it's a tip to get your voice heard, that maybe someone else will be inspired. Mm-hmm. And that's ideally what all of us try to do, is to give inspiration, that fire in your belly to do more. And it's everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And Wes, you said you've also found your way to give back to the community. Some of us, aka me, are still trying to find our way to contribute. And that was one of the big reasons that I did what I did on Christmas, because I knew that there was a lot of people who wanted to contribute. They just didn't know how, or maybe they just didn't have the time and the energy to put into it. Like I was able, fortunately, to have time to do it. So yeah, I can help be a conduit for that. I don't make any money off of it. So when you guys hear this in the future, like I said, probably in July, we're going to start it quite early. I want to shoot to raise about $100,000 this year. And I think $100,000 would give us pretty good leverage with these toy companies to do something really, really special for a lot of folks. And it's completely doable. And then there's also this opinion. What do you think about this? Good old Air Luna. That's all we'll say there. I appreciate honesty. All right. Well, let me ask you, dude. So where do you see things moving in cryptocurrency over the next, let's say, 5 years? What will be different in your mind from now in 5 years?
Well, let's go back to some of my old talks, right? Metcalfe's law, Moore's law. We push harder and harder and move faster and faster. How long have we had cell phones? Just like rinky-dink cell phones, the ones in bougie old cars that had like an analog twist line that plugged into the fucking dash. Not that long. Not in the scalability of having actual phones. And a phone is the first circumvent of having a horse and a carrier pigeon to actually get the mail somewhere. Yeah. So if we look at like the scope and the push in the grand scale and scheme of things between not even be able to talk to people, to send a letter on a fucking boat, that boat took 4 months and may sink, to now you can call them on a phone, to then be able to call them on a cell phone, to be able to call them and email them. In 5 years, augmented reality and virtual reality would be the full front.
Yeah.
And what is that? That's internet interoperability. And what does that use? Internet advertising, internet money, internet throughput, internet organization. We're at the point that analog shit in general will be usurped by anything that isn't backed or bonded through a crypto throughput. I mean, think about like newspapers. They talk about like fake news on the internet. Yeah. But how many people actually pick up a fucking a black and white newspaper, comics on Sundays?
Nope.
Right? You know what I mean? Like that was the bread and butter of knowledge. Yeah. Same thing about a library. Alexandria's library will be entertainment, education, interoperability in the future. Who will go to a fucking college and spend a ubiquitous amount of money when they could just join in virtually or go have tutorials or have small access mentor series?
Yeah.
Why would you spend the money that I did to get my pedigree when all you need is mentors to help you do things?
It's just accountability. That's all it is. You need
Yes,
accountability.
sir. Accountability and responsibility and communal education.
Isn't it funny how it boils back down to the very basics of how to live your life as a human being?
It's even crazier if you take it down to the term, it takes a village to raise a child.
Right.
And with this interoperability, you have the village right there.
Yeah.
And it's accessible 24/7.
Absolutely, man.
It's wild. It's wild. It basically circumvents the entire model which they built their debt and their ideals on. Because when by the people, for the people, we can organize and teach each other, we don't need anyone else.
Yeah.
It's like, why do you need a farmer's almanac when you have multiple farmers that will almanac for you?
Or a flux capacitor for that matter.
That's right. That's right. Yes, sir.
What's this say? My 9-year-old is phenomenal on Roblox. School.
And I teach. It's yes. That's such a key to the future is give someone a game and teach them how to learn. I was homeschooled most of my life, so that was the game. Learn fast enough, and I got out of school early. And now we have technology that does that. It's no longer Reader Rabbit or the Oregon Trail. It's sexy, fun things that people want to do. Mm-hmm. And once you give them that, they will run faster than all the rest of it. Because when we were kids, I mean, you advertised that you didn't graduate high school or like such, right? And so like now you're giving people the freedom to learn outside of even caring about that pre-K to fucking, 12th grade thing. You could learn faster and get a job quicker being a savant and specializing in your skill set from the beginning. Let's say you wanted to be a baker and wanted to train under Gordon Ramsay. Maybe he offers a class that gives kids the ability to do that. And yeah, you should learn all your fundamental education. Otherwise, you're just going to be handicapped later. But you can specialize and focus on that and then get all of your mediocre stuff done.
I think specialization, if we're going to compare it to what our broken ass education system looks like right now, specialization should probably occur after grade 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
At that point, you've got the grammar down, you got the spelling down, you got the basic math down, you got everything that you're going to need to carry on with life. Time to specialize.
Correct. Well, I mean, if you think about it, you learn geometry and algebra in 8th grade, 7th grade, because your mind has grown enough to do that. That's why you learn languages really early in 3rd and 4th grade and all the rest of that stuff. So you start your journey of specialization and you get your first fundamental chip in the board. It doesn't mean you have to stay there. Like I never did art a day in my life before I went into this crucible of the last 14 years.
Yeah.
But you can. And I wished I would have started earlier, but I didn't think I was good at it. So why try? And that was my faux pas. Now I learned the keys to the castle later in life that I could do anything if I was tenacious. Not good, tenacious. If you just don't give a fuck and keep going and don't sleep. Eric Thomas, when you want to succeed as much as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful. You will be. You may not be the best in the beginning, but the best sleep comfortably. The tenacious keep going. Tortoise and the hare.
Absolutely. And another thing about success in the education system, etc. I think that, in my opinion, I think we could start teaching people algebra is in 4th or 5th grade.
Now that we have the tools to do it, because again, the Oregon Trail was kind of a joke in a game, but it's kind of true. If you become the banker in the beginning, you don't get dysentery. Right. We have the tools to let kids take a game or an entertainment platform and allow it to learn from them. Instead of
Yeah, how come that
Watch.
hasn't taken off more, man? That seems like that would have taken off 20 years ago.
You would think so. You would think so. But again, education isn't sexy or profitable. It's the
Hmm.
same thing we were talking about with green energy,
Mhm.
right? That's what Matt is doing, is like they're eventually going to make green energy sexy and profitable.
Mhm.
Once we take education and make that sexy and profitable, why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you do it? It's kind
It scares me to think about the amount of people that we have stifled over generations in our education system that could have been a once in 500-year brain. And
Mhm.
when you look at the once in 500-year brains and you see the amount of impact that they have on the world, it's absolutely crazy. And
Sure.
what is our education is stifling people. They're not going all in on their strengths. It's scary.
Well, that's because they're controlled by sub democracies and subcommittees and other committees that are run by governors and other things and other things and other things that are run by politics.
Yeah.
And if the money, excuse me, wasn't an issue, then it wouldn't be an issue. And that's the inherent benefit that Wes, what's going on? Another one of my onboards. But like, if we look at the fact that we have the opportunity as yield producing hexagons to build, sponsor, care for, and do many, many, many more things that allows all of society to get built up. What if we didn't have an Edison? What if we didn't have fucking any of the greats, right? Those timelines that put a foundation into what we consider forefathers, we're at the epoch of that generation to do the exact same. Whether you're just funding or you're building, you can both take part in it and know what you're doing will be the most philanthropist thing you can do, which is allow people to learn, period.
And you bring a really good point. And I hear a lot of people talking about this, and I don't. This is what I think about it. You got hexagons. We've got this yield, okay, that lives on this blockchain that ultimately can't be taken away. We might have to wait a little bit to get the correct off ramp, but we can keep it in there and it keeps producing yield. So what happens? We get insanely rich as a community. One thing that needs to be said is we're amateurs when it comes to money. And what do you mean by that? Well, compare us to families and compare us to banks that have been around for 100 or 200 years. We're going to come into a lot of money, but we're going to be staunch amateurs. And if we're not careful, we're going to lose it all. So it's very important for us as a community to take every opportunity we can and take that money and go learn voraciously, or as soon as we get it, it will be all gone. Because
Correct.
literally the game that this world plays, they find ways to take your money and they disguise it very, very well. So learn constantly, constantly. All right, what's this say? Brazology, we're getting out from under the boot of the central bankers with our alternative money. And really, what's cool is it was all that legacy system has been imploding since the early 19th century.
Yep.
The fact that cryptocurrency is here now is just speeding up the process and it's shining a brighter light on the legacy system.
Well,
So
they didn't even have the access to the internet back then. Remember, their
exactly.
foothold was based in carrier pigeons and Wells Fargo trains with the mail and all the rest of that. Once all of us got the opportunity to get together, they can't circumvent us.
Yeah.
And even things of the last 2 years that circumvented us from meeting in public, they don't make us where we can't meet right here. They actually took zero power away from us. In fact, they enabled us. Now, I've talked about this before. I don't think Hex would have taken off without the issue that happened 2 years ago because all of us weren't home. We weren't actually able to stream. We weren't actually able to put the time in because we
That's
would
a
have
good
been
point.
busy
That's a
by
really good
like,
point.
well, we all would have been busy worrying about what the Joneses are doing or going on dates or all the rest of that. It was a perfect storm. Same thing that happens with this bear market coming with Pulse Chain. It's a perfect storm. So don't look at the commonality of external noise distract you from the fact that we are living in an epoch and we have access to the most important thing, interoperability, by talking to each other
Mm-hmm.
and learning from each other for free.
Absolutely. I love it. Absolutely, man. That is a beautiful thing. The what do they call it? The velocity of data, the
Mm-hmm.
velocity of information makes people a whole lot smarter, but it also makes people a whole lot richer. That's
Correct.
important too. Jonathan Kampala, my children are learning how to grow food.
That's
They play
fantastic.
outside in the dirt every day. That's a good thing. That is a good thing. Nothing wrong with that. It's happened forever. All right, let's see here. Somebody says, "Damn, I love crypto Kool-Aid." I don't know why, man. I don't know why they like you so much.
Do not like, do not subscribe, do not comment. I do not have a channel. I only
Dude, the,
cameo.
the great thing about those three statements is there is no expectations.
That's
After
right.
that, I could be
That's right.
like, screw off.
No, I absolutely love it, dude. I love your entire message. That's why you have me 24/7. By the way, I'm sending messages to all of my warlords that may or may not have super contracts that Hasbro for you
I
right
love it.
now.
Cot G, I thank my mom today for my private school education. It definitely prepared me better than most. So I put my kid in private school, and here's why I put my kid in private school. It's because I looked at my community and I saw all of the new teachers that were coming in and replacing the old teachers. And I went to school with half of those new teachers, and I realized that their cumulative SAT score was probably very, very low, below national average. And that scared the hell out of me that those people would be teaching my child something. And especially the fact that I don't really trust universities to give people a fair and unbiased education. So with that said, I sent them to private school, but I'll tell you guys this. If you got kids and you're thinking about sending them to private school, you need to get a copy of the curriculum that they teach. In private schools, they've got standardized private curriculum across the United States, and you need to dive through it, and you need to talk to the administrators and talk to the teachers and sit down with them and say, well, what does this mean? What does that mean? Why are you guys teaching them this? Et cetera, et cetera. You need to check the curriculum out because you're sending your kids there for 8 hours a day or, 6 or 8 hours a day. And those teachers have all the time in the world to do whatever they want with the soft mush of your child's brain. And you have got to treat that child's brain like it is the most valuable thing ever to exist in the history of the world. And if you do not, then other people will, and they will take advantage of that. So you got to make sure you know what your kid's getting taught. Very, very
Yep.
important.
Very, very important.
All right. Let's check. Never off ramp fam. All right. Cot G says, my mom was an educator and she did that. She picked a great school. Looking back on it. Absolutely. Well, brother, listen, man. We've been on for about an hour and a half. Folks, I really appreciate you guys coming on board here. I'm going to continue with the back half of my constitutional talk
Do it,
probably
sir.
tomorrow night or the next night. And I think it's very important for people to know because they don't hear it from anywhere else. You probably haven't heard anything like that in decades, most of the people in this chat. But it's important to outline how awesome this country is and how awesome the Western world can be if we really adhere to the principles that grew us to the point where we're at now. Very parabolically, might I add. Okay. So do you have anything else for the crowd here, buddy?
No. You literally can just text my cell anytime you pop on to see if I'm available. Brandon seriously is one of the ideal people in this next generation of Hexicans, from all of us like OG stuff to what people are doing. And I can't like highlight enough how honored I am to have you as a friend and to see what you're doing. So
Well,
anytime you,
that's
yeah.
difficult for me to hear, but thank you, friend.
Do not like, do not subscribe, do not comment. We give zero fucks about your feelings. And that's
Hey, I'll
exactly the
say
point.
this. I'll say this too, folks. As awesome as Hex is, it's not as awesome as Liberty.
Correct. And knowledge.
And
Knowledge
and
is
money is awesome and all that. But when everything else fades away, Liberty is awesome. Freedom is
correct.
awesome, and the world needs to know about it. So
exactly, sir. Exactly,
that's how
sir.
I
A
feel.
pleasure.
Guys, I'm out of here. We're going to take this. We're going to count down here. Thank you for showing up. And I'll see you guys either tomorrow or the next night. Later.
Yo, yo.